Good day, children. Sai Ram. Today I will be explaining chapter number 15, Wilbur. Children, look at this picture. He is the author of this story. His name is Elvin Brooks. Now, Elvin Brooks White. Okay, his name is Elvin Brooks White. So, he was an American writer who was born in Mount Vernon, New York. He was a contributor to the New Yorker magazine and wrote books for children, including Stuart Little and The Trumpet of the Swan. Okay, children, so this story revolves around Wilbur. And who is Wilbur? Wilbur is a piglet who is about to be killed as he is too little. The story begins with an 8-year-old girl named Fern who works out ways to save the runt. Runt means a small pig. Her father gives the piglet to Fern to look after him. Now this extract, that is the story that is given over here in the chapter. So this extract is a part of the children's novel Charlotte's Web. So I'll start with the reading. I'll read the lesson paragraph twice and then I will explain to you. Fern loved Wilbur more than anything. She loved to stroke him, to feed him, to put him to bed. Every morning, as soon as she got up, she warmed his milk, tied his bib on, and held the bottle for him. So we already know Fern is an 8-year-old girl who loves Wilbur, the piglet that her father had given to her to take care of him. Fern took very good care of Wilbur. She would stroke him lovingly, feed him and put him to bed. She would warm up milk for Wilbur as soon as she would wake up in the morning and would tie a bib around him, just as we do for babies, and held the bottle of warm milk for him. Look at this picture, children. She is Fern and that's the small piglet in her arms. And here she is holding the bottle of milk for him. Okay. Every afternoon, when the school bus stopped in front of her house, she jumped out and ran to the kitchen to fix another bottle for him. She fed him again at supper time and again just before going to bed. Mrs. Arable gave him a feeding around noontime each day when Fern was away in school. Wilbur loved his milk, and he was never happier than when Fern was warming up a bottle for him. He would stand and gaze up at her with adoring eyes. Okay, so in this paragraph, we understand the bond between Wilbur and Fern. As soon as she would come back home from school, she would warm up milk for Wilbur, and even though Mrs. Arable would feed him around noon every day, Wilbur would be the happiest when Fern would feed him. He loved his milk, and more so when Fern would warm up the milk. He would stand next to her and look at her adoringly, meaning lovingly. Okay. For the first few days of his life, Wilbur was allowed to live in a box near the stove in the kitchen. Then, when Mrs. Arable complained, he was moved to a bigger box in the woodshed. At 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. It was apple blossom time, and the days were getting warmer. Mr. Arable fixed a small yard especially for Wilbur under an apple tree and gave him a large wooden box full of straw with a doorway cut in it so he could walk in and out as he pleased. So for the first few days or the initial days of Wilbur's life, he lived in a box near the stove in the kitchen. But it must have been a little trouble for Mrs. Arable. So he was moved to a bigger box in the woodshed. What is a woodshed, children? Woodshed is a place where wood is stored. So when Wilbur was 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. Since it was the time of apple blossom, the days were getting warmer. Mr. Arable had made a small yard for Wilbur under an apple tree. Wilbur was given a wooden box full of straw, and a door was made in the yard through which Wilbur could walk in and out. Won't he be cold at night? Asked Fern. No, said his father. You watch and see what he does. Carrying a bottle of milk, Fern sat down under the apple tree inside the yard. Wilbur ran to her and she held the bottle for him while he sucked. When he had finished the last drop, he grunted and walked sleepily into the box. Fern peered through the door. Wilbur was poking the straw with his snout. In a short time, he had dug a tunnel in the straw. Okay, now since Wilbur was moved to the yard, Fern was worried that he might feel cold at night. She asked her father if Wilbur would feel cold. So her father, Mr. Arable, told her that she should just wait and watch what Wilbur does. Fern sat down inside the yard with a bottle of milk. And after Wilbur had finished the last drop of milk, he grunted, meaning he made a low sound indicating that he was done, and sleepily walked into the box. Fern looked through the door. She saw that Wilbur had dug a tunnel in the straw with his snout. Okay, children, that's all for today. We will continue with the reading and explanation of the remaining chapter in the next class. Thank you, children.